We're going to get into the spreadsheet here. But first, if I'm going to talk about some of the tee times here, which I don't really want to because the weather, I'll just pull up the weather. Let's just do that. The weather right now, there I am. There's some of the chalk. The weather here, there's a bunch of different forecasts I've been looking at, and, pretty much for Thursday, it all looks even. No matter what side I look at, it looks like pretty much the same winds pretty much all day. It doesn't look like it's going to rain on Thursday there. Obviously, that could change. That's kind of how it works over there. I forget how to get the full. Here we go. I think it pops up when I do this. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to hit compare. There's 3 forecast models on this site. Thursday, it all looks pretty much the same. And this first one and this third one look pretty much the same. But it doesn't look like there's a huge advantage between, anywhere here. It doesn't look like it's going to really rain on Thursday. And if it does, it's going to be real early. Friday is where I really want to look. Friday is where I think we're going to run into some problems. The problem is that by the time we might know more exact, at least or better predictions on what the forecasts are, it's going to be really hard to, well, you can't, no late swap in PGA. Yeah, it's going to be real hard to predict what the weather is going to be on Friday. And these forecasts are all a little different. I mean, this one's got winds dying down Friday afternoon, worse in the morning, but no rain, and then rain in the afternoon. This one has tons of rain in the morning. This one has rain late evening and really bad winds midday. So all of these, this is a total shit show right now. Thursday is pretty consistent, even with this other one. This is apparently the official government wind page. It's not a fake news like ours, but we'll go in. So the Friday that they have is rain in the afternoon, late afternoon. So a lot of people are saying that the AM on Friday is looking bad, but I'm not so sure about that. It might be the Friday PM that ends up being bad, but of course everything can change. Tomorrow night I'm in California and LA, so for me I'll be up till midnight. I'm usually up till midnight. I'm recording this at 9:20 on Tuesday night, so that's where I'm at. If you watch this later, this is the forecast now, but I'm definitely going to be looking all the way up until lock as to what the forecast is, and probably just going to do a consolidation of the 4, see kind of where they think that things are going to end up. And so I've read a little bit into this site here, and it says very accurate model, basic free model, and this is a NOAA model. And this is a European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast. That sounds pretty fucking legit. This is a basic free model from NOAA, but this is apparently a better one that they also do. So, if I were gonna take 2 of these, I'd take the top one and the bottom one. But I'm not a meteorologist by any means. But this says basic, and these say very accurate. So, sticking to the script of the weather forecast that we want this week, I'm targeting. I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet here. That's probably the last I'm going to go on these sites here. Back to the spreadsheet. So, I've got some trends up here. I'm going to move my movie recording so you can see my face. But so some trends that I'm, not really putting too much stock into, but they are trends for a reason. 11 of the 17 last British Open winners had a win in that season. Before I get into the winning trends too much, I'm a majority cash game player, and I feel like, if you're trying to get in the money in GPPs, you're going to want, 6 of 6. You're going to want 5 of 6. You're not going to want, you know, two of your very risky plays to miss, because then there's a very good chance that you just don't cash at all. And that obviously kind of sucks. So a lot of weeks in GPPs, I end up, because I'll throw in multiple lineups, and some of them are more risky than others. A lot of times I don't get to the very top because I'm not putting together the right combinations in those, lineups or whatever. But, um, sometimes I just end up even because of, taking too many risks. So I think there is a balance that you need to take. But, and then there's also the cash games. Sometimes your chalky guy, Kevin Na will just go out there and suck. So then you're looking at your GPPs to salve it, and that's what Bryson did that for me last week. I had a lineup on FanDuel without Kevin Na, without Danny Lee. I had Kisner and Berger up top, Ben Martin, Strillman, Summerhays, DeChambeau, and a bunch of those guys that really did it for me. But that kind of salvaged my week, kept me even. So yeah, despite the Nick Taylor and Kevin Na debacles. But yeah, so for the winners here, last 11 of the 17 last winners here of the Open, it's a different course every year, in rotation. So last time it was here, it was 2008. Patty Harrington won, Ian Poulter came second, Stenson was third, Adam Scott, Phil Mickelson were in the top 20. Justin Rose finished tied fourth with, who was it? I just said his name, but finished tied fourth with him as an amateur. And Snedeker missed the cut. Stricker tied for fourth here, I think. Fourth or seventh, one of the two. But, there's a common theme with those guys, and it's that they're good links players. They have good open track records. The weather was bad that year, +3-1. You haven't seen that all year. And you might see it again this week, but there's also a chance you don't. This course has no protection in terms of trees. The only protection it really has are very penal bunkers and rough. So you want to be accurate, but at the same time, that part of you wanting to be very accurate is the wind, which will take some of the guys that are pulling driver and putting them off the fairway. That's going to be bad for them, but if the wind isn't there, they can kind of hang as well, and just hit 3-wood and hit it further than you're going to hit anything else. So, while keeping it in the fairway. That's definitely something we want to be aware of. But, I think the way this course has played in the past, the weather hasn't been great. So I'm going to bank on that. And especially with the forecast on Thursday and Friday looking like there is going to be a fair amount of wind and some potential rain on Friday, particularly during the afternoon, I'm going to play those angles. So back to the trends. 11 of the 17 past winners had a win that season. It's a coastal course, so a lot of coastal specialists tend to do well here. A lot of, like I said, links and wind players tend to do well here. Crafty veterans. I'm not really targeting many young players at all this week. I think this course is a totally different test. I think this major is generally, except for last year, Troon played not very easily, but you saw scores that were kind of like Aaron Hill's, which we thought was going to be very difficult, but wider fairways, and a lot of the bombers were in play, like Finau and JB. Guys that I won't really be on so much this week, because I think in the wind, in bad weather, it's going to take a whole different kind of game, and I hope people buy those course history angles, and I hope it bites them. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be playing a certain type of golfer for the most part here. and really going with quality that I think will be low owned when I make my GPP lineups. I think people are going to take a lot of deep shots on guys that have been hot, like Ryan Fox. And, I see the merit in it, but I don't see last week playing like the Scottish Open either, where, the weather wasn't spectacular, but it was, super awful. And I didn't think that course, Fox isn't the most accurate guy. So I think I don't I haven't delved too deeply into his recent stats, but he's a guy I'll have a piece of, but I think everyone else will too, so I don't really know where I want to be on him just yet. And then the tee times too, I think that'll factor into it. If you have a guy that's not so accurate and the wind's going to be spraying it everywhere and he's not good around the green, I'm going to be very worried about that. So recent form is also really big at the Open. If a guy is not on his game, I think he's going to struggle a lot here. And I have, approaches in clear weather and around the green. In bad weather, in bad weather, you're going to want your whole game to be, top class, because that's when you're going to separate yourself as other guys try to fall back. You're going to make the pars, they're going to make bogeys, and you're going to stay around even par like Patty did in '08. So approaches around the green are key for me this week. I used fairway percentage hit for PGA stats instead of driving accuracy, just because I can see a lot of these guys clubbing down. Phil just straight up took his driver out of the bag this week. I think that's a great idea. So that Phil, 176 fairways percent hit. I think that's because Phil likes, playing driver on some of these longer courses. But, I think there's plenty of merit to Phil this week. But and then I have some ownership projections, kind of where I think these guys are going to fall on the right side. I don't claim them to be accurate. I haven't done this before for other events, but I really think that based on where I've been seeing guys and kind of, some of these, I think Rory at 8 will be higher than that. People love playing Rory no matter what. They always think that he has a great chance to go out and win, and I agree, but I'm not going to play him this week. I just don't play that many lineups or that high stakes where I really need to have that guy. I think I can differentiate elsewhere and keep my other choices up there. But, for the spreadsheet here, we'll get into it. I have last 5 form and last 5 in the Open, which I think are both important, as I said. Let me quickly unfill this so you can see what it is. Sorry about that. Bogey avoidance, I think, is going to play a factor. Like I said, you don't want guys that are going to fall back. You want guys that are going to hang tough. Bogey avoidance is a good way to measure that. From the left, though, I have fairway percentage / driving accuracy for the Euro guys. Strokes gained approach for PGA last 12 rounds. Greens in regulation, European Tour full season. And the strokes gained stats will be within the field. The Euro stats will be on the Euro Tour. So, obviously green is better, but, there's some grains of salt to be had there. And also with some of these Euro guys or PGA guys that have been playing on the Euro Tour, you want to be careful when you look into the stats. Rose around the green, great on the PGA Tour last 12 rounds, scrambling European Tour, trash. So why is that a thing? Well, maybe his putting on the Euro Tour hasn't been great, in certain events. So, you want to be kind of careful with that. But like I said, I think strokes gained around the green tends to be something that matters at the Open. Strokes gained approach tends to be something that matters at the Open. Putting also tends to matter at the Open, especially when it comes to avoiding the bogeys that are going to set you back. You want to get up and down, and you want to make that putt for par. You don't want to be tapping in and adding another stroke when in reality you could have just sank that 6-footer. So that's something that I think matters a lot this week. But I'm going to get into it at the top here. I will sort by DraftKings salary first, and then I will sort by FanDuel salary at the end and point out some plays that I like over there. I'm not going to spend as much time on there just because less people tend to play over there. So starting at the top, like I said, Dustin Johnson, I think he will go. I'm going to start out with it. I think he goes under-owned this week for his talent level, just because we haven't seen him since the U.S. Open, where he burned a lot of people who thought that he was almost a lock to win and didn't really turn out that way. He kind of sucked, but approach game has been solid around the green. He's been solid putting. He's been all right. He's good at avoiding bogeys. He's the best player in the world. If you want to take anyone head to head, you're probably taking DJ. Right now, I don't know if you are. On this course, I think I like Spieth more. I think most people do, but I think that makes DJ a great GPP pivot. If you're tossing lineups into large field GPPs, you're going to want a fair amount of exposure to DJ. I don't know where I'm going to be on him. I'm probably just not going to play that many GPPs this week, just because I think the weather is more random than I think it is predictive right now, and so that's kind of where I stand on it. But yeah, I like DJ this week. I just don't think there's a reason to go with him in cash when I think other guys are just as safe, if not safer. He has great open history, which you probably saw earlier. You could go back to there when the screen grab wasn't up there. But, in the recent form, obviously earlier this year, he was winning events left and right. He was coming second, top fives. So, DJ has a ton of win equity. And I think he could do it. But just right now, he hasn't shown me much recently to make me think that he's in great enough form to put him in that category with Spieth right now, who, fire recently. I mean, the guy is dialed in. Second last 12 rounds in approach, fourth around the greens, 21st putting. We know what Spieth can do to a course when he's dialed in. He has the grinding ability with the bogey avoidance. I think he can avoid the big numbers and stay focused. The kid is super talented. My only, depending on how the tee times work, Friday afternoon, if it's as bad as some of those forecasts say, Spieth does have that late afternoon tee time, which, right now I'm not really too focused on. But, if it comes to Wednesday night and it doesn't look good, I may just end up fading him, and that scares me because I think he fits the best for this course out of the top guys. But we'll get to that. I'll definitely be retweeting some sharper people than me's weather updates, and if you follow me, you'll be getting those as well. So stay up to date. But Jon Rahm is kind of a head case. I think I'm going to fade him too this week. He did win at the Irish Open, so a fade of him kind of scares me. But he hasn't shown me enough at links, or at least at opens, and in bad weather that I think that I can really trust him here. I like Spieth's short game a little better than Rahm's right now, and I think Spieth is, to be honest, just as dialed in on the approaches. I mean, we know Rahm can tear up a course. He did it at the Irish Open, ran away with the thing, but, he's just kind of a nutty guy. We saw him kind of fall apart at the U.S. Open. I think he could do the same here. Maybe he learned from his mistakes, but he's very young. He's a fiery guy. Loves to just hit the ball far. I don't really know what his approach is going to be to driving the ball this week, so I'm just going to kind of avoid him and hope he doesn't go win. Rory is another guy that's just not in good form right now. Despite what the stats say, I am not big on Rory this week. I mean, he had that good performance at the Travelers, I want to say. The Travelers or the Quicken Loans. It was one of those two. But he had a good performance there. He missed the cut at the U.S. Open and had a decent performance before that. But he's just kind of a guy that right now I'm not going to really go there. Could he go win this thing? Yes. But I'm worried about him right now. And like I said, the price, I don't think I need to go there. the reason I don't think I need to go there is because Sergio's right there. Sergio has an immaculate open track record, 5th, 6th, 2nd, 21st in his last 4. He finished, I believe, he did make the cut back in '08 here, and without going and looking into the weather waves, I'd imagine that he didn't have a good draw that tournament just because of where he finished. I mean, he's been a contender at almost all the British Opens, the Open Championships, whatever you want to call it, since he's really started to be a world-class golfer, and you get a little odds value with him on DraftKings, and if Friday morning is going to be an advantage, which I don't know if it is, like I said, if it is though, he has that early tee time, like you can see there. The European Tour, he's been dialed in with the irons. PGA Tour the same, scrambling great, bogey avoidance great. So, in its last 5, 2nd, 21st, 12th, 20th, 30th worldwide, and a win at the Masters. I think he's really enjoying himself right now. I think he's in a great place mentally. He's not worried about his game, and I think he has what it takes to come out here in some really shitty conditions if they get there and grind it out. And I think he also has the ability to go low if the conditions call for that too. So I like Sergio a lot. Probably will start my cash lineup with Sergio. I think a lot of people will, but I think it's definitely a good place to go. Leaves you a fair amount of salary for your other guys. Justin Rose is a guy that I think you can see on FanDuel is underpriced. I think I'm also, spoiler alert, starting my FanDuel cash lineup with Sergio as well. Instead of Fowler, who's a little more expensive over there. I think the value for Fowler's on DraftKings. But Rose, I think, going back to him, he's just a really solid player. He's played really well at this course before. He's been good in the last 3 Open Championships he's played in. Has very solid recent form. He did miss the cut, I believe, at the U.S. Open. Without going back to that page, that I think is what that X is there. And for this code on the right here, the slashes are did not play. The X's are missed cuts. So that's kind of where I am at for Open Championships. I didn't have past results for all these guys in a very easily accessible place, so I just didn't really go back to their last 5 appearances here. But there are certain guys where I would talk about their overall history. Sergio is one of those guys. Rose is another one of those guys. They play really well at Open Championships, and I like Rose this week. I think he is a safe cash play. On FanDuel, I don't really need to pay that much for him on DraftKings, I don't think. Jason Day is a guy who's also in pretty rough form recently. Came into the U.S. Open looking really good, but a lot of that was his putting and short game, which could serve him very well here. The problem is I don't think he wants to rely on his putting and short game overall at this course to really have a chance to win. I think if it turns into a grind fest, then Jason Day maybe has a chance to contend here. But I think if it's if he really needs to be on point with his irons and his short game can't save him, he's going to have some trouble here. And, bogey avoidance, he's been awful. Well, part of that is the U.S. Open because, he was so bad. He made so many bogeys that there was no coming back with anything. He was just so off there that it was a disaster for him. So I'm not going to be on him on FanDuel or DraftKings at that price. I mean, it's tempting, but, God, the odds makers are really tempting you to bet him. That means nobody is really betting Jason Day even at those odds, or else they would have moved back down a little bit, I think. But that's kind of where I stand on him. Tommy Fleetwood has been on fire, 10th, 1st, 6th, 4th in his last 4, but he has never made the cut at an Open Championship in 3 tries. And you would think for a British guy that has a lot of talent, he would have popped at one of those events. And, the stats really check out for Fleetwood, leading the European Tour in greens and regulation. Um, Around the green, he's been good on the PGA Tour events. Scrambling and putting, not necessarily, crushing it there, but his approach and accuracy game have been really, really good recently. So I like Fleetwood, but I don't really know what I want to do with him. I don't think he's a cash play just because of his Open Championship history. He's a very young player. He's going to be under a lot of pressure this week to perform at his home course. And, I've seen it before with these home course guys that, they don't always perform so well at their home course. Bubba at Greenbrier doesn't own the place. I mean, then you have guys like Stricker and ZJ at, the John Deere, but those courses, that course is so built for them, that it's not fair. But, I don't know how built for Fleetwood this course is. If he came out and played really well here, I wouldn't be shocked, but I'm not going to go with him in cash just because he hasn't shown me really that he has exactly what it takes to succeed at an Open Championship, and maybe the pressure gets to him. I'm not really willing to take that risk on him this week, even at 8,100 on FanDuel. It's really tempting at those odds and that price, but like I said, I don't know about him this week. I think he has as good of a chance to miss the cut as he has to win, and that scares the hell out of me. But that chance isn't one that I really want to take in cash games. I'd rather have a guy in cash that finishes 30th than misses the cut. I don't really see too many mid-tier outcomes for Fleetwood. I think he either goes out there and dominates or just kind of, peters out and buckles a little bit. But Stenson is a guy that I like but do not love this week. I heard an interview with him last week after he kind of he had an up and down week at the Scottish Open. And by the way, if you played the Scottish Open last week, I'm going to be weighing that a little bit heavier than if you played the freaking John Deere at TPC Deere Run, which is a birdie fest. I mean, it's a totally different mentality on this link style course than it is to last week. I mean, if anyone goes 20 under here, good for them, but it's not going to be Royal Troon last year. I don't see that happening at all. And I definitely don't see, even last year, Stenson and Phil were so dialed in. And, JB was third and 8 under, and that's respectable, but I don't see this course giving up that much, especially with how penal a lot of the bunkers are here. And I think, the wind looks like it will be a factor. So I'm going to go with that angle. But Stenson, I think, his Open history is really good. I mean, first 40th, 39th, second, and did not play. Came third here at this same course back in 08. Defending champion. Good recent form. His only missed cut was on the number at the U.S. Open. No worse than 26th in the other 4 made cuts, between those times. He, I think, is a guy that people don't want to play because they have been burned by him before, but I like him this week. He sets up really well, especially on FanDuel at that price. He is currently in my cash lineup over there, but, he hits every fairway. He hits greens. He can get up and down. I mean, he just sets up very, very well for this kind of course. And he knows how to play here in ugly conditions. And that's, I think, something that I like a lot this week for him and a lot of other guys who we'll get to. But Hideki this week, I think Hideki's getting a lot of talk. A lot of people like him to win. I think last year he probably had the bad side of the weather draw based on the fact that he missed the cut. He seems like a guy that would have succeeded in a birdie fest, or at least a tournament where there were a lot of birdies. Hideki and bogey avoidance. I thought I had that stat for him. Let me pull it up quick. I do want to figure out where he was. Yeah, just because, bogey avoidance, I think, is something that we want to look at. I do want to see where he was in that category. Can't believe they haven't updated this main page yet. Scoring. Yeah, and I've seen some people looking at birdie or better this week. I'm really not. I don't think it's going to be a birdie fest by any means. Oh, Hideki 7th in bogey avoidance. That's definitely what I like to see. I'm going to plug that in there. Don't know how I didn't have it there before. Um, yeah, so yeah, Hideki definitely in play for me. I like him in cash on both sites. I don't know. I'm not fitting him in right now on FanDuel, but I think it's definitely an option. Um, and there's enough other guys in this range that I like just as much, with tee time splits being a possibility that, you could go with him in cash on FanDuel. I don't think I'm going to, but I like him in DraftKings. I think you can get him in because there's a lot of very chalky value that I do like. I think there's a lot of good chalk value that a lot of the GPP players are going to fade, and I'm fine with that. But I think in cash, the chalk is there for a reason, and I like it. This week, I will eat it up. But yeah, Stenson, yeah, I'm on Hideki, sorry. But Hideki has odds value, especially on DraftKings over Stenson. I think Hideki can go hit fairways if he wants to. His approach game is rather solid. Bogey avoidance is good. Around the greens, he's solid. He's a great ball striker. That is what everyone knows. His putting lets him down a little bit, which does worry me a bit. But, he's been very good in his last 5. So the recent form is there. He does have some Open history with 3 top 40s in his last 3 appearances at the Open. So I do like to see that too. Fowler is going to be the chalk of the week on DraftKings, and I'm not quite sure what to do with it, but I think I'm just going to roll with it, man. I mean, look at his recent form. He does have a missed cut, but I'm not too worried about it. His Open history is very solid as well, and, I think he's really rounded into a very top-class golfer this week, or this year, excuse me. He's a guy that I think you are going to be playing in cash on DraftKings unless you are just a fade the chalk kind of guy. I think in GPPs there's enough talent in this range that you can fade Fowler rather comfortably, if you believe there's going to be a tee time split. I think just because of where he's teeing off, he has a very split time, early in the morning on Friday. So if you think that's going to be a bad wave, I think there's a lot of merit to taking a tee time fade on him, and hoping that hoping that I think 25% Fowler in GPPs, maybe more. I think cash he'll be around 40, but I think if you want to fade him in GPPs, you can do it this week. Hideki will be lower owned, Stenson will be lower owned, Fleetwood will be lower owned, Brooks, Phil, they'll all be lower owned than him. I think there's a lot of merit to taking a stance on him if you are bold enough to do it, just because there's so much odds value on him that, it's going to be hard not to. We saw at the U.S. Open. I really regret not playing Ricky. He had tons of odd value on FanDuel, and I completely botched it and just didn't play him. I thought he was a trap there, and just because of poor U.S. Open history, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to play him. FanDuel, I'm not sure if I'm playing him just because I think Sergio is as safe, has the same tee time split. So if I had to just pick one, it would be Sergio for 200 cheaper. And I like where my lineups are with just Sergio. I'm not really trying to fit in both. I'll try it in a GPP and see if I like that build enough that I could switch it to cash. But right now I'm not set on a lineup so much, but I have one in mind. But going down, Koepka, U.S. Open winner, had a brilliant performance there. Really ran away with it on Sunday. But he hasn't played since then. That worries me. Did start on the Euro Tour, so he's got the links experience. But you know, at the Open hasn't really. He has a 10th place, but hasn't really crushed it outside of that. Miscut 67th. So having not played since then, I mean, does he have the game for it? Yes, but I just don't know about him this week. I don't know how motivated he is to go out and win again. And that's kind of silly to question because these guys always want to win. There's millions of dollars on the line, obviously. Um, cement yourself, but I just don't see Kepka repeating um, as a major champion. That would take a lot, and I just don't see it happening. Phil's a guy that I've heard a lot of mixed talk about this week. A lot of talk about his caddy leaving and his longtime caddy not there anymore, and that's gonna rattle him. But and then Phil sprays the ball off the tee. Phil makes too many bogeys and big numbers, but I think Phil knows how to play Open Championship courses. I mean, he has a win at Muirfield where, if I'm not mistaken, the final score, his winning score was 3 under, which is by no means a birdie fest or a scoring fest that you would think that Phil would succeed in. That seemed like a very kind of grinded out, survive to the end type of performance. Phil said he's taking his driver out. He's going with, I think, a 12.5-degree 3-wood, which is almost a driver hybrid 3-wood. He says he hits it very low and kind of hits a piercing ball, which is going to be great for the win this week. He is number 1 in his last 12 rounds on his approaches, and we all know that Phil is a short game specialist. So I love Phil this week. I think that people might fade him just because they want to fade Phil. But his last 5, no finishes worse than 41st. Hasn't really contended for a win, but that's not what I'm looking for in my cash games. I'm looking for a made cut. Phil's Open history is solid enough that I'm very okay with taking him in cash. I'm not, especially at FanDuel. I mean, that price is absurd at 7,600. There's other guys in that range that I like, but I think Phil is, Phil has, I think, just as much upside as any of them. But we'll get to them. And the odds aren't great on him, but I think that's just I don't know why. I think people just don't want to take him, so Vegas can't lower the odds and make him less attractive. But Adam Scott's another guy that's going to be popular. In cash, he falls into that kind of, Adam Scott's underpriced on DraftKings range again. And he falls into a range on FanDuel where I'm kind of having to decide to play 2 of Scott, Rose, and Stenson in cash. And I don't know where I'm leaning on that one right now. I think it's going to be a tea time thing where, if I think Friday afternoon is the advantage, I'll play Stenson and Rose. If I think the morning's the advantage, I'll play Scott and probably find someone else in that upper range, like, Fowler, or I'll play Scott and drop to Paul Casey or something like that. But, right now I'm not really buying into it too much. I think I'm going to play the best plays and kind of decide tomorrow night if I'm going to keep to that strategy or stack a wave in cash. Not sure what I'm doing yet, but yeah, Adam Scott, great Open record. Like I said, did kind of screw some people at the U.S. Open, myself included. He just could not hit a fucking putt. I mean, it was insane. He was great ball striking, which you would think would correlate to success at Erin Hills, but could not sink the short putts. It was absurd. It hurt to watch. Hasn't been hitting as many fairways as I'd like him to, but his approach game has been fine around the green. He is good. And the putter, I don't want to talk about it. It's a bit skewed. It was higher going into the U.S. Open. Last time we got to see... no, Adam Scott played in the Scottish, didn't he? I think he did. I think he got like 36th, which is, good, but not, he didn't go out there in top 10, which I would have liked to see. I would definitely be on him a lot more this week if he did that. But a made cut is solid enough. But and he has the history too that Phil has, 43rd last year, whatever. But 4 top 10s in a row before that. You gotta love that. Then back, and back when it was ugly here before he, top 20, but Phil did too. And right now, it's kind of a Phil Scott, and then some of these lower 7K guys. That's kind of where I'm debating where I want to, put a 2v2. Thomas Peters definitely not a cash play. Good God, he was the same price on FanDuel in the U.S. Open. He had better odds. I thought the course was perfect for him, and he went out there and sucked. And Stricker was 7,400, and I was like, no way I play Stricker here, blah, blah, blah. Stricker goes out there, makes the cut, plays really well because he's Steve Stricker and he's on a major. Pissed me off. I had the same debate between Louis and Koepka for what it's worth. I picked Louis because I thought he was safer, and he, also made the cut, but Koepka won the damn thing, so that kind of hurt me. But Peters is a guy that I'm going to own none of. He sprays the ball. He is good in approaches, but I don't think he's a great enough scrambler. He's a good putter, but a 30th place in a major, 30th place in the Open is fine, but a little volatile. I think you could play him in GPPs. He'll go low owned in this range, but I don't know if this is the course for him. I don't think he has enough upside at this venue for me to really like him this week. Louis is a guy that I think if you fall on him in cash, you can definitely go with him. I forget exactly how he did here in the past. I'm not sure if he played. I mean, you can look that up if you want, but I don't think it was glaringly bad or anything like that. Don't think he did superbly either. I think he maybe made the cut but didn't go anywhere. But he hits fairways, he hits greens, he's great around the green, he is a good putter. His last 5 events, no worse than 41st. He has a miscut, but other very good Open performances. He's I believe won an Open championship before, so I like Louis a lot this week. I think he's fine. Just haven't seen a lot of him recently, really. So I think he's fine, but yeah, I mean, do what you want with him. I don't think he's going to be as popular as, maybe he should be. So he's fine to play in cash and JPP. Justin Thomas, a guy I won't have any of. I just don't trust his game at a links-style course. I don't think he has much experience with links-style courses. 53rd last year, not great recent form, and those were in kind of weaker field PGA Tour events at courses that I thought he could have done really well. So I'm not going to be on him, but I don't think many people will. So GPP play only, but I don't really want to go there too much. Paul Casey might be a little chalky at those odds and that value, but I'm not really sure how much I like him. I mean, he did have a good, I think, T9 performance here back in 08. But he hits fairway. He's been a great ball striker and bogey avoider, but hasn't really had great Open Championship performances in the past 5 years. I mean, 2 miscuts, basically miscut, 74th. I mean, just didn't really go anywhere. 47th and it didn't play. So, but I look back at his form going into those, and it was kind of the same as it is now. I mean, Paul Casey's always been a very solid golfer. His problem is he never wins. But it's hard to argue with 5 top 26s in his last 5 events. I mean, he did really well at the U.S. Open. He did well at the Masters, I believe. So I like him. I think if you're looking for a tee time split guy, I think he'll be solid. But I don't really know where I'm going with him yet. Grace is another guy that makes the cut at the Open, but never really kills it here. I don't think he makes enough birdies. He just kind of is steady. Good recent form, so I like that. But also hasn't really. I don't know what to do with him. I mean, he makes cuts, but At 8,000, I think there's more upside kind of around him. Maybe just as safe, but I don't know. I think he fits the course pretty well, but you know, there's a bunch of angles that you can take this week. So I like Grace, but I think he's a guy that when he needs to hit fairways, he does. I don't really buy too much into the driving accuracy stat for him. Hatton is a guy we'll have none of. I mean, obviously, Link's experienced player, but 4 missed cuts in a row, I can't go there. He hasn't been playing well. I think he had a death in the family, so I think he might be more focused on that than golf right now. And the Irish and the Scottish were both tournaments that I thought he could have done really well in, and I, didn't. So I'm just going to kind of stay away from him. Patrick Reed's a guy that I think can do well here. I'm just not going to own much of him. He's kind of falling into dead range for me. I like a lot of the guys up top more to go out there and have a chance to win than Patrick Reed. I don't think Patrick Reed wins a tournament here. Missed the cut last week at the Scottish. I think, and he was coming into that hot. His putter's been a huge reason for his success recently. And I think, that is a good thing for him, but also at the same time, I'd like to see more out of the approach game. So, not really going to be on Reed too much this week. Shane Lowry's a guy that, can definitely succeed at this course, but kind of for the same reasons as Reed. I mean, he hasn't missed the cut at the last 2 Opens, but, before that, good performances. So I don't really know what I'm going to get out of him, so I don't love that play in cash. The odds aren't great on him to win. I think if you're looking for a solid links win player, that he's a guy that you can play in GPPs. I'm just not really going to be on him, especially in cash games. Noren's a guy that I think has capability to win here. He popped a lot in 2008 when the tournament was here. I believe he was an amateur then. Played really well. He's a guy that nobody really plays because nobody ever sees him play. He's never a high-profile guy. He's not known as a world-class golfer, but he is very highly ranked. Terrible driving accuracy, but a lot of that I think is just European events. But he hits a lot of greens. He gains a lot of strokes around the green. Great scrambler. So those two kind of go hand in hand. Makes a lot of putts also, which boosts the scrambling stat for the Euro Tour. But miscut 10th, miscut 15th first. So what are you going to get out of Noren? He could definitely make the cut here. I like him to do that, but he's kind of falling into a dead zone before, like I said before. And I like Leishman a lot too at this tournament. I mean, his recent form is more consistent than Noren's. He is trending upward right now. He has taken a few weeks off, though, to be with his family. His wife just had a kid like a few weeks ago. So, I mean, maybe we saw with DJ that he was rusty. Maybe that was something, when he came back to Erin Hills, his wife just had a kid. So maybe he was spending a lot of family time and not really focused on the golf so much. So maybe that's the thing for Leishman. But he's been so good this year that it's hard to, really hold that against him. He's a guy that's gonna be hitting greens. He's gonna be making putts, and if he misses greens, he's gonna be fine. I think he can grind it out with the best of them as well. Not the greatest Open history, but I think he's a good play. I don't think he'll be very chalky, but I'm also not really landing on him in this range very much. And there are a lot of good plays in this range. I think if I had to play one of them, it would be Leishman or Noren. Slight lean towards Noren because of how he's played here in the past. But again, if you think there's a tee time difference between them, feel free to take one or the other. Keimer's a guy. I don't know what to do with that guy. He has not been playing well recently, so I think I'm just going to fade him. But I think he will be lower than 8% owned, which is what I have over there. I think he'll be around 4. People aren't talking about him at all, and his odds just keep dropping. Nobody wants Keimer this week. He's shown no upside recently at his home tournament. He missed the cut at other tournaments that he's done really well at. Sucked, so not going to be on him. Westwood, I think, is a guy that a lot of people like to play at Open Championships because he's British and he's known as a solid player. And I don't mind it at all. I mean, 3 top 15s in his last 5, also a miscut 55th, but I just don't see much upside for him this week. He hasn't been playing well enough overall for me to really love that play. I mean, he did well at the U.S. Open, but I'm just not really going to be on Lee Westwood as much as I think other people might be. The price range isn't great for him, really. I mean, if I did play him, it would be probably on FanDuel, but I think I'd play Leishman before him, just for 200 cheaper. Right now, I don't have the money for Westwood, but I do for Leishman. Spoiler alert, if you end up building my lineup, fine. If you do, I don't care, but yeah, so that's kind of where I stand on that. I don't know if Westwood played here way back in 08, but you can look that up. Zach Johnson's a guy that hasn't been playing great year-long, but, obviously went out last week at John Deere, which is his tournament. Basically went out and played really well. I mean, he did do well at the U.S. Open, so I'd like to see that. A good major performance there. He has a win on the second to past Open Championship, which is great to see, but that was also kind of a birdie fest. He went minus 15. Been a little volatile this year. I'm not really sure what I want to do with him. I mean, he shows up at majors, he shows up at Open Championships, but I don't really know where I'm going to go with that or with ZJ this week. I mean, I think he's a great GPP play. I think a lot of people are going to be on this next guy, Bernd Wiesberger, but I don't really like him as much this week. I think that a lot of people are going to be on him, but he's kind of trailed off since that stretch where he was really hot earlier in the year. He hasn't played well at Open Championships past. I don't think he's changed that much as a golfer. So not really going to be on him very much. Ian Poulter's a guy that's been on fire approach around the green recently. He's been great at avoiding bogeys, which I think you're going to need here. He's shown that he can avoid bogeys here in the past with a second place finish back in 08. I really like Ian Poulter this week. Hopefully that tee time wave is good for him. Hopefully both tee time waves are fine. I really don't want to have to make the tough calls here and stack tee times in cash. That is not something I want to do, but if I have to, I mean, but Ian Poulter, I want to say his FanDuel price is a bit criminal. He has very good odds. He was a great performer last week at the Scottish. He faltered a little bit on Sunday, but I like what I've been seeing out of the guy. I mean, he's popped in Open Championships before, 3rd, 9th. He has a 2nd back in 08, like I said. But, a few missed cuts. But he wasn't playing that well in those years. Didn't play last year. But, recently been performing really well. I saw a video he posted on Twitter today. I don't put much stock into this, but holdout from the bunker on number 1 today for birdie in his practice round. I like that. The guy's feeling it. So I like Ian Poulter a lot. I think he's certainly cash game viable at his FanDuel price, his DraftKings price. It's a little tougher, but if you have the extra salary, I think you can do it. It's just tough when there's a guy like. I'm just going to skip the next 3 guys because I think they're GPP plays only, and only if you're willing to have a high risk of a miscut. I'm not on those guys really at all. I hate all 3 of them as I never get them right. I'm just not going to play them. Siwoo Kim is probably going to shoot 20 over or get injured. Fitzpatrick, I think, is almost a little overhyped at this point. He is a great putter, but I don't really like his off-the-tee game, and he hasn't really performed super well at Open Championships in the past, despite having the British factor going for him. Um, JB, yeah, same kind of thing. Not great at avoiding bogeys. I think he puts too many big numbers out there. We saw it the players. He blew up on Sunday and just ruined his chances at winning. Um, Charles, a guy that I think isn't playing GPPs. I'm not going to go there in cash. His putter's just been carrying him. Don't know if he can get away with that here. But he does have a very solid Open Championship track record. The recent form has been spotty, though, and that's why I can't trust him in cash. Molinari's a guy, 5 of 5 made cuts in his last 5 Open Championships. 4 of last 5 made cuts, and before that, he was on a streak of top 25s as well, and we were rolling him in cash every week. So I like him a lot, especially, just hits a fairway. He hits the greens. His putting is a little sketchy, but I like Molinari this week. I think he's in a group with Leishman and Phil. I think that's going to be a big-time group this week. I think they're all going to perform really well. I think that's a group that if you're buying into tee time waves and you like one of them, I think it's a very good option to stack Phil, Leishman, and Molinari because they're playing in the same group. And I think if they get that weather advantage, they can all go out there and really do their thing. So I like that strategy if you're going to take an approach like that. I think Molinari will be a little chalkier than Poulter. I think people trust Molinari more. We've been playing Molinari all year. But I love, Molinari, Kuchar, Poulter in this range as cash plays. I think everyone does. I'd love all 3 of them to make the cut, but, just the way that these decisions have been going for me lately, it seems like a very good chance that probably 2 of those 3 make the cut. And, God, fuck me if I have to pick which one doesn't, because, I probably will. But anyway, Kuchar, great odds to win this thing, coming in on a heater. Kuchar is, but, I like him a lot this week. I really hope that morning tee time is good because then I can just roll Kuchar out in cash on DraftKings easily. He's going to be the uber chalk, probably over 30%, probably near 50% on DraftKings in the big double ups. But FanDuel, I'm not so sure where he's going to end up because Phil's right there and Casey's right there and Oosthuizen's right there, Grace is right there. Lowry is right there. Westwood is cheaper than him. Those guys are all big, big names too. I right now have Phil over him, and I could make the case to go, down from him and up from Leishman, but right now I'm kind of with the Phil and Leishman combo. I like that. I like the upside that I get out of that, and I think they both make the cut. They're in the same group, so I like that a lot. If I don't like that wave, I'll probably end up switching off, but, I haven't thought that far ahead yet. I'll think about that tomorrow night, and I'll, let people know where I'm at. But Kuchar's a lock and load in cash in your preliminary builds. I think that's goes without saying. He's criminally underpriced. He should be around 8K along with Grace and Casey in them. But DraftKings does whatever they do. I don't really understand it. Patty Harrington's a guy that I will be playing in cash on FanDuel, but his DraftKings price is a little high for my liking. I think there's better value with some other guys, and he won here before, and he comes in with a 4th and 4 made cuts in a row. I'd love to see that. So I'm going to be on Patty and cash on FanDuel. I hope people don't go down that low. I hope people don't really look into him too much. Around the green, he's a great player. Links form, he pops a lot. Wind play pops a lot. He's a low ball flight naturally. I want to talk about the ball flight thing a little bit. I've heard a lot of people talking about, high ball flight, those guys are going to struggle. Phil has a high ball flight, and he succeeds in the wind at the Open, virtually every year. Phil can manipulate the ball flight rather easily. These guys aren't you and me, okay? Like, I can manipulate the ball flight if I want to. the ball back in your stance, hit down on it more, keep it low, not that hard. Especially for these guys, this is what they do. They adjust to the wind. Some better than others. Phil, I think, is one of the best at it. So that's why I like Phil a lot this week, and I think people might just go to Adam Scott. But Adam Scott, I don't know if he's a better play than Phil. So I'm going to go Phil. And, hope that Adam Scott can't putt again. That would be wonderful for me. Especially if I don't play him in cash on FanDuel. But, yeah, back to these guys. I think Rio is a great play in GPPs on FanDuel, especially. He's a little too cheap for what I think he could provide here. He's a very solid overall player. I don't think he's going to flash upside, but I don't hate him. I think if you can go there. I don't think a lot of people are, but I think that's a good reason to use him. 12th last year. I'd like to see that. Jimmy Walker hasn't been great recently. He was good at the Greenbrier, but that's a tournament that he historically does well at. So there is that. Otherwise, I'm not really in love with Jimmy Walker at all this week. I don't see many people playing him. Andy Sullivan's a guy that's been in really good form, made 2 cuts in his last 2 opens. I think he made a cut previously. I don't have it on here. Can't really play him in cash just because I don't consider him to be a world-class golfer, but he is coming in really good form. His ball striking worries me. 205th in greens and regulation on the Euro Tour. That is a bit of a concern, especially with the driving accuracy being 160th. It seems like around the green and putting are kind of where he's been better. And even earlier in the year, he was not performing very well, but I think he's a good GPP play on both sites. I would not have a problem with that. Andrew Beef Johnston is a guy that not really on too much this week. Missed the cut last week at the Scottish, which kind of was disappointing. Good form before that. Did well at the U.S. Open. He had a great first round there. 8th last year, but I think that course fit him a little better with the power angle. He really put the ball out there. Brought up on links though, so I do like it if you want to go there in GPPs, but I'm just not really going to be on him too much. I'd like to see that guy. I'd like to see guys that played better at the Scottish. Kind of do. Carry it over a little bit more. Henley's a guy that I think you can play in GPPs this week. I'm not going to do it just because I don't like the guy very much. I think he relies on putting a lot to save bogeys, but it pays off for him with made cuts. Not great Open Championship history. Missed the cut 2 of the last 4 years. Basically missed the cut 4 years ago. At 20th, but I don't hate the play in GPPs. I think he might be a little more popular than you want, but I think he's in play. Olesen is a guy that I'm probably just going to fade at that price. FanDuel price is a little tempting, but he hasn't been playing. He's been up and down recently, and he's been pretty good, but past Open Championships hasn't really done super well. I think he's worth a shot in GPPs, especially if you like the Friday morning tee time approach. You can go there, but I'm not really going to touch him. I don't think he's super world class. Stricker is a guy that I think is cash game viable on DraftKings at 6,900. He's going to hit fairways. He's going to make greens, and he's going to make putts. And he's fine around the green if he doesn't hit the green. He is great at bogey avoidance. His odds are 100-1, but that's just because I don't think he wins, but I think he makes the cut. It's Steve Stricker in a major. He hasn't missed the cut in a major since I think before 2012. And there were a few years, between and back then that he didn't play. But people don't want to play Stricker just because. I don't know. I didn't want to play Stricker at the U.S. Open, and I thought that was a terrible course fit for him. Aaron Hills was supposed to be this long beast that, you had to be able to drive the ball far. And Stricker just went out there, put the ball in the fairway, didn't fuck with the fescue, did not get himself in trouble, and just went out there and played really well. I mean, no worse than 45th in his last 5. He has only missed 1 cut this year. Forget which tournament that was, but and then great success in past Open Championships. I think he's missed 2 cuts in his last maybe ever here, and and did really well here in rough conditions in the past. I like to see that, and that's kind of the player that I think Stricker is. I mean, he knows how to deal with those conditions. He's a great wily vet, so I like him a lot. Keldson is a guy that I think people are going to play also down in this range, but I don't know if he's as good of a win player as people make him out to be. I don't know. He comes in with a little bit of spotty form, a 9th place last time out at the Irish, I believe. And then a 9th last year at the Open, but, also a miscut. He doesn't really play the Open Championship too often, so it's hard to gauge where he falls within this field, consistently in Open Championships. So for me, it's kind of a tough choice. I think I like Stricker more. I don't know if Stricker's going to be very chalky, but I do like the Stricker play. Pat Perez is a guy that I think could play in GPPs. I think he's going to be very low owned, but we haven't seen him play in a while, and that kind of worries me. I'd rather take Harrington at the FanDuel price. I'd rather take the next guy, Brant Snedeker, at the DraftKings price, but Snedeker is going to be very chalky. He has a lot of narratives going for him this week. He's in good form. He's good with the short game. He's been very solid on his approaches. He's known for his coastal form. He's a good good links player, solid Open Championship history. Didn't do so well here in the past, but maybe he had the bad weather draw in that past tournament here, so I'm not too worried about him. I think you fire him up. The FanDuel price is a little steep. I like the value I'm getting on Leishman at cheaper. I think they're basically the same play. Leishman's been as consistent, if not more consistent this year. I think Leishman, Open Championship history, kind of just as good. I mean, Leishman has lost in a playoff in an Open Championship before. Snedeker's got 3rd, 11th. Leishman has a 9th. So, I don't think they're too far apart if you're looking on FanDuel. Chris Wood's a guy that I think people are going to play in this range that I don't mind. His 2 morning-ish tee times, but, if you're taking that angle. But, Chris Wood's short game has been solid this year, but he hasn't been doing much lately. I mean, he does have a 2nd place, but also 3 miscuts in a row, and 2 of those were at kind of comparable events, the Irish and the Scottish. So if you're looking for that European-style course form, you're not really going to find it with Chris Wood. In past Opens, he's made both cuts that he's been here, but I think he performed really well as an amateur here in the past. I want to say he did, but not in love with that play. I think it's GPP only. Woodland is a guy that I'm going to take a pass on this week, despite his relatively consistent Open Championship history. He has not been playing enough or well enough this year for me to want to take him. I mean, no better than 40th. Just not really, not really what I want right now. Uline's a guy that people have been playing because of his Euro form and his Euro prowess, but I'm not going to be on him so much. I think he's inconsistent. So I think he's in play for GPPs on both sites, but I'm not going to go there in cash. I'd rather sandwich Poulter and Harrington around Uline this week. Martin Laird, nope, not for me. Inconsistent, just not really sold on him, having the class it takes to really compete in this field. Steele, a guy we love from the PGA Tour, burned everybody last time out. Very good scrambler. He's known as a very steady player on the PGA Tour, known for avoiding bogeys, but hasn't performed well at the Open in the past. So I'm going to take a pass on him, in cash especially, but I think he's worthwhile if you want to look at some GPPs. Webb, another GPP play for me. They're in the same group. Webb's short game has been better. Putting is always inconsistent with him, but he's been consistent, and he's been pretty consistent here at the Open. So, like him. Berger is pretty underpriced a lot, but I don't know about him on a links course. That kind of worries me. Hasn't really popped at Opens in the past. He hasn't played much links golf, I don't think, so might be a little bit of a wake-up call for him. So I do like him, but GPP only for me, especially at that FanDuel price, DraftKings price. And if you really want to roll the dice, you can take him in cash, but I think I like Rafa a little more in cash on DK. And FanDuel, if you have to go there, I think I'd rather just take Leishman. But Rafa's in play in cash on DK. I think with his recent win at the Scottish, I think he's going to ride in very confidently. He's hitting a lot of greens on the Euro Tour. He's gaining a lot of strokes around the green last 12 rounds here. He succeeded at the U.S. Open. I think he finished somewhere in the 40th-ish, 40 to 50th range. That was that 42nd he had. So, yeah, I like Rafa here. Number one in strokes gained putting on the PGA Tour last 12 rounds. So his putter is hot overall on the PGA Tour events. I like to see that, and he has made the cut in, I suppose 3, 4 of his last 5 Opens. I do like to see that, and he's shown some solid links form overall in the past. So I like him a lot. I think you can play him in cash on DraftKings especially. I think people are going to play Kisner in cash. I don't really like that play. I don't think he's succeeded enough at links courses for me to trust him in cash. And his form has tapered off recently. 58th, miscut 44th, and not the strongest of fields there for Kiz. So maybe I didn't update this one after the John Deere, but Ross Fisher's another guy that I think you could consider in cash. I think a lot of people might go there because of his recent form more so than his Open Championship history. But he does have 2 miscuts in 2 of his last 3 Open appearances. So I don't know if I love that play in cash. I think it's a little riskier than people think. He's flashed the upside recently on the Euro Tour, but he's also missed a cut and had some, more mediocre performances. I think when the weather gets tougher, I don't know how he plays in that kind of weather. Whereas these other guys we know, Snedeker can play in wind. Don't really know about Fisher so much. I think he's a bit of an outlier. And I think with Poulter's more steady recent form, I like Poulter over Fisher, and Poulter's performance here in the past over Fisher's. Charlie Hoffman is a fade for me. He does not fit this links profile course very well at all. Ben On is another guy that I don't really like too much this week. He's just not been an upside player recently in weaker fields. I don't really see much reason to trust him at a tougher course where his short game is going to have to be on point. So I don't like him as much. I think he's putted well on the Euro Tour in the 2 events he's been there, with the few events he's been there, with the scrambling and the putting, but I don't really love him love him this week. I think at best a made cut, but at worst, or at best like a 50th. I don't really see him getting upside at all. Chappell's a guy really screwed me last time out. Only a 53rd at the Open before. I don't think Chappell's a grinder. I think I don't know what to make of Chappell this week. I think you can play him in GPPs if you want, but I don't love him. Bill Haas is a guy that's popped at the Open before a few times, but his best performance at the Open was last year, 9th place. But, very good recent form. He's a good grinder, hits greens, good around the green, can go out there and hit fairways. So I don't mind Bill Haas if you need a cash game play in this range. I kind of like Rafa better just because he's been a little more consistent at the Open, but it's tough if you want to go Haas or Rafa. I can't really fault you for either. If I had to pick one, Rafa or Haas, that's tough. Haas has been a par machine pretty much overall, but he's been a par machine in places where, I think that people should be making birdies, a lot of birdies. So I don't really love to see that actually, because that means that he's not, he's not scoring when he can be scoring. He's not playing well enough to be, scoring as much as we'd like him to. He's just making a lot of pars. And not only is that not great, but it's not great for DraftKings scoring. And this might not be a week where DraftKings scoring matters so much, but I do think it plays a role. Duffner's a guy I think you can play this week. I just wish he's played like once since the U.S. Open. I mean, won the Memorial. I think then he just kind of went out, missed the cut, and just hasn't played. So I don't know what to make of him this week. I mean, he's been very solid in past Open Championships. He's a guy that'll put the ball in play, get it to the green, and probably two-putt from there. He's not great with his putter, but I think he's solid enough. It's just a matter of how much has he been really playing and prepping. So I'm not really sure what I want to do with him. I think he's in play for cash if you need a guy at this price. I think Haas is too. I think Rafa is, but if you ask me to choose between them, I'm going to have a very tough time. I think you want to find the money for Snedeker, if I'm being honest. But, going down from there, I think Duffner, most consistency at Opens. I mean, but recently, Haas would be your consistent recent form guy, and I think, so that's a tough call for me. Haas versus Duffner, flip a coin. I'd probably do it a tee time draw if you think you like one of those guys in cash. With Rafa's tee time kind of falling right in the middle of them. So if you think, weather might be really bad at a certain time, you can look into that. But any guy below here, I will not be considering in cash. Duffner is as low as I will go. Harmon in play for GPPs, but I think he might be too popular. Recent form is great, but I don't know what his links experience is, so I'm not going to play much of him. Kyle Stanley is the same thing. He can make a lot of birdies, but he's not great with his putter or short game, so he can also make bogeys. I don't know if that's really going to serve him well here. I don't know if he's a grinder enough for that. I think he might be a little more popular than I'd like with PGA guys kind of just playing him and not thinking about the links angle as much. So I'm going to be off Kyle Stanley pretty much here. Ramsey is a guy that I like in GPPs a lot because I think nobody will play him, and he has a links experience. He has a second and a 35th on the Euro Tour in his last two starts. I like to see that out of a guy that I'm going to be playing in a GPP and that nobody else will really have. I've heard a lot about Charles Howell this week. He is number one in bogey avoidance, and he is very, very low ball flight. for what it's worth. But you know, not only has he not really played too many Open Championships, he hasn't really. I don't think he's really succeeded in the Open Championships he has played. He's a guy that's known for making cuts but not reaching upside. Um, he's coming back from a recent injury, but he's been playing really well. So that is something that you do like to see. But I just feel like his bogey avoidance almost comes from him just making pars, like I said with Haas. Like, he makes a lot of pars on courses where he doesn't need to be or that there are birdies for the taking, but he's not taking them. He's just not getting. He's not making bogeys. Which, if you're telling me that somebody isn't making bogeys on a course like TPC, Deer Run, or the Greenbrier, I'm going to tell you, well, they probably shouldn't be making bogeys, on those courses. So it's less impressive to me than I think it looks on paper. I mean, going back up at the top, and that's the last guy I'm really going to talk about. I think Fox will be a GPP play. Wes Bryan sprays the ball too much for me. I can't trust him. Really screwed me last week, but I'm going to be on the fade train again this week. I don't think he has the experience it takes here. Does have the short game, though, so that is an angle that you could take with him. But, and all these other guys, Kevin, screw that guy, man. JD has a really good Open Championship record, but he's been in pretty poor recent form, so I'm not going to be on him. Streb is a GPP-only play. He's flashed upside at Opens before. And then, Horschel, Lovemark, I don't think these guys fit this course very well. I think Bjork is a guy that you could potentially look at for a made cut. I mean, he's flashed some good recent form in the Euro Tour. I like to see that. Horsey is another guy that has shown that he can play links golf in the past, so I don't mind him. Lee kind of has been all around the block recently in terms of his performances. I don't hate that play, but I don't think that he's a guy that you can have any confidence in. He's just a guy that'll be 1% owned, that if he goes out there and finishes, 25th, could win you a lot of money, but I don't really see that happening. McGirt, Lovemark, Horschel, those guys are kind of all in the same boat for me, where they just haven't shown me anything at links courses, and they're in decent but not great recent form. Well, I mean, scratch that. Lovemark's been in very good recent form, but I don't have it there, but check it on his DraftKings page. Very good recent form. I'm just not sure this course is the kind of course that Lovemark is really going to succeed at. So yeah, that's how I feel about him. Sink is a guy that people will be playing, but I don't really love it. He's been kind of spraying the ball off the tee recently, so I don't really love Stuart Sink this week. Good Open Championship record, I will say that, but yeah, he's kind of been wild off the tee recently. I don't feel the need to go down this low in cash, especially on FanDuel, where Harrington's right there. I like that play a lot more. But I think Sink is in play on DraftKings if you need a guy at 6,300. And Bjork also, I think, has the kind of game that it takes to do well here. But yeah, going back at the top, what I was saying about bogey avoidance, I think it is something you want to look at, but I think you also want to take a look at, who has the capability to really score here and make birdies. And I think the guys that are capable of making birdies here are guys like Fowler and Hideki and Sergio and Rose, guys that we know can go out there and really win this tournament. Paul Casey doesn't win tournaments, really, because I don't think he ever goes low enough. Here, he might not have to, which I think is a good angle for him. But, yeah, I mean, that's kind of all I have for this week. I mean, I really like a lot of plays, but it's really tough to narrow it down, especially like lower 7K range and upper 8K, upper 7K. 10K range, I don't think is as hard. I think you play Sergio, but FanDuel, there's a lot of combos you can make with 8 guys. I think you know you're going to want to shoot for 6 of 8, and I think that's enough this week. I think every major you have some guys that just go out there and have a shocker and kind of fuck it all up, but that happens. So that's about all I got for this week. But best of luck, and if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter. You know where to find me. So, peace.